So from what we understand of that question, is gluten intolerance or allergy a behavioral response, which is a learned response, or is it something that is unique? It is a real thing. The answer is yes and no. The answer is yes and no. Yes, because humans are an interesting breed where they like to jump on the bandwagon. So for some people, it's a learned response, and they will respond to the ingestion of gluten in a way that makes them special, in the inverted commas. However, there is also, if you then look at it for people who their bodies cannot cope with it, really cannot cope with it, then we would say no, and again yes, because the body will always adapt. The body will always protect. So if there is an allergy or an intolerance, the body will learn how to deal with that in a particular way. That way might be to reject it and to cause illness and so on, which becomes a learned behavior of the physical body. That learned behavior of the physical body, which is there to protect and to support, will then become an emotional, mental, learned behavior as well. The thing with gluten, gluten. Well, actually, let's talk about grain first. The thing with grain and the human body, or the human evolution now, and grain now, as it has evolved now, whether you use ancient grains or, biodynamic and so on and so on, the human body has evolved to a point where it's not that it's breaking down, but it is rebelling. That's the word we're looking for. It is rebelling. So you imagine that in the world now, for several generations now, we have had in our environment so much pollution. Now we have the EMF. Our food has been degrading because of the move from smaller farms to these huge corporate monocrop farms where they will do anything to get the biggest yield. And then that is gone somewhere to be processed into something that is then processed into something else, and then frozen or cryovac or whatever into something else. And so people have, the environment that we have been living in and creating as a human group has actually put so much stress on the not longevity, but the survival, if you like, of the human, that now it can take very little to have a response, a negative response, because the body, we say that the evolution of the human body, the physical, is actually at a point of rebellion. It can no longer cope with all of these assaults. And the assaults are, as we just said, the pollution, the increased population, the foods that are really corrupted, that are provided, and so on and so on. And even the sedentary life that most people lead now. So many people who are feeling more strongly the rebellion of the body against all of these onslaughts are looking to their diet, for one thing, as well as many other things. You are looking at lots of different aspects, but are looking to their diet. And some people have gone on to the raw food. Some people do, liquid foods. Some people do, juices and green smoothies. Some people are removing grains from their lives, and carbohydrates and so on. What we say to people is that the food needs to increasingly become more pure. And when we say that, we don't necessarily mean that it needs to be organic and homegrown and things like that. But in the preparation of that food, it needs to be light food. So if you are cooking something, then the food needs to be not strongly flavored, which a lot of foods are. It doesn't need to have a lot of additives to make it tasty. In fact, you want to start treating your body with foods that have less taste but more energy. So if more pure energy, not complicated energy with lots of things in it, but a more pure energy of 1 or 2 or 3 items in it that are beautifully grown, yes, beautifully grown, however that is, whether it's meat or vegetables, and you bring those energies together. And this is the thing that people need to start looking at. It's not the food that they eat, it's not the amount, it is the purity. And purity often comes from simplicity. So when you talk about is gluten behavioral, as we've said, yes, no, yes and no. That's our, but when we look at the food that people are eating, whether they're eating a lot of grain and they get this grain brain that you talk about, or whether they're eating a lot of meat and they've cut out this and it's how pure the energy is that you are bringing into your body. That's what the body is craving. And that's why when things are too complex, like EMF, like the pollution, like the types of food, it's so complex. The body rebels. The body needs purity and simplicity. That's what the body is yearning for. And that's what it is rebelling, why it is rebelling against everything else, pushing us to that. Simplicity and purity. We hope that has some relevance to your question.